Ever been left behind like a forgotten suitcase? No note, no plan, no goodbye, just silence and expensive perfume in the air. Then, this one's for you. It smelled like vanilla and steel. The perfume she always wore, the one she couldn't pronounce but insisted made her feel elevated. It lingered in the air as she wheeled her Louis Vuitton suitcase toward the security line, laughing with her new husband like I wasn't standing 10 feet behind them. She never looked back. I was 15, one duffel bag, $47 in cash, no ticket, no plan, just a sick feeling growing in my chest like something rotten. They were flying to the Maldives, first class of course, 2 weeks of beachside cocktails and curated Instagram stories. And me? I was an afterthought, an inconvenience. The math didn't add up for 3 kids, so I was the one left off the itinerary. When I asked earlier that morning why I didn't have a ticket, she just shrugged. "You'll manage, Chloe. You're always the survivor type." And that was that. No hug, no goodbye, just the sound of her stilettos clicking against the terminal tile and the snap of her designer suitcase zippers. I stood there frozen, watching families around me reunite, hug, laugh, dads tossing toddlers in the air, mums wiping tears from cheeks. The contrast was unbearable. I wasn't just alone, I was left. That word, left, hit me harder than anything. I didn't scream, I didn't chase after them, I just sat down on the hard plastic chair outside gate 17 and stared at the floor. My phone had 12% battery left. I hadn't eaten since yesterday's leftover toast. The vending machines blinked at me like predators. I thought about calling social services, but something inside me, pride maybe, refused. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. I wouldn't become a headline. Teen abandoned at airport by mother on honeymoon. That's when a name surfaced in my brain, one I hadn't said out loud in years. Noah Whitaker, my biological father. My mother had scorched him from every story she ever told, replaced him with bitterness and silence. Said he'd walked out when I was a baby, never sent a dime, never wanted me. I believed her, until now, because if that were true, if no one wanted me, why did I still feel this pull, this thread connecting me to someone I'd never truly known? I scrolled through old texts, back to the year I turned 12. Buried in a forgotten thread was a single number. No name, just digits and a timestamp. I hesitated, my thumb hovering. What if he didn't answer? What if she was right? Then again, she'd also told me she'd never leave me. I pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice. Steady, deep, quiet. Hello? I couldn't breathe. The tears that hadn't come earlier now hit all at once. I tried to speak, but all that came out was, "Dad!" There was silence on the other end, just breathing. And then, "Chloe, where are you? I'm coming." And that's when my world tilted, because up until that moment, I thought I was living in a story about being unwanted, about being forgotten. But maybe, just maybe, I was about to become the main character in one of those revenge stories, the kind where the person left behind doesn't just survive, they rise. 30 minutes later, my phone rang again. "Stay where you are," he said. "You'll see it." And I did. The sleek private jet coasted onto the smaller runway like it owned the sky. People near the windows gasped. Some took out their phones. Me? I couldn't move. My hands were numb. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out the engines. The door opened. A man in a tailored black suit stepped out, and even from that distance I knew. He walked toward me. No hesitation. No questions. "Chloe," he said, arms open. I ran, not because I was certain, but because I had nothing else left to run to. His arms wrapped around me like I'd never been gone. And right there, buried in that hug, I knew. The people who left me? They had no idea what they'd just done. They didn't abandon a burden, they created a storm, and this time I wasn't going to be the one left behind. The cabin was so quiet I could hear my own breath, shaky, uneven, like my lungs were still catching up to the moment. I sat opposite him. The man who was supposed to have disappeared from my life, the man I was warned about, told to forget, erased like a dirty word from every photo, every birthday, every bedtime story. And yet, there he was, Noah Whitaker, my father. Up close, he looked both like a stranger and something I had always known. Same eyes, same chin, a quiet steadiness I didn't know I craved until it was sitting across from me. He didn't say much at first. He just watched me, not like he was analysing, more like listening, without a word. And after the year I'd had, after years of being spoken over, talked down to, ignored, it was jarring. I pulled the sleeves of my hoodie over my hands, trying to hide the shaking. "She left me," I whispered. "Just walked off. No ticket, no backup plan, just said I'd figure it out." He didn't flinch, but I saw it, the way his jaw ticked, just once. "She always was selfish," he said finally. "But this, abandoning you in an airport, that I won't forgive." I think that was the first time I truly exhaled. The jet glided through the clouds, a surreal calm wrapped around us. No crying kids, no glaring strangers, no apologies for being in someone's way. It was quiet. Too quiet. "I don't have anything," I said after a long pause. "No clothes, no school, no idea where I'm supposed to go next." He leaned forward, eyes soft but certain. "You have me." 3 words, simple, steady. And somehow they hit harder than any long speech ever could. Because nobody had ever said them to me before, not like that, not with that kind of weight behind it. That's when I broke. Fully. The tears didn't ask for permission this time. They just came. And he didn't look uncomfortable. He didn't tell me to stop. He just sat there, letting me fall apart like I'd been holding my breath for years. We landed just past midnight. The air outside the private hangar was crisp and cold, but not unfriendly. Men in dark suits and earpieces nodded respectfully as we stepped off the plane. One of them opened the door to a sleek black SUV. I climbed in slowly, taking in the smell of leather and cedar. It was stupid, but the scent alone made me feel safer than I had in months. Once we were inside, my dad looked over at me, calm, unshaken. "Chloe," he said, "we're going to make this right, but on our terms." Those words felt like a life raft. I stared out the tinted window, my thoughts swimming in flashes, my mother's voice echoing, calling him useless, dangerous, a ghost. But that wasn't the man next to me, not even close. "What about her?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Mom." His expression didn't change much, but something in his eyes sharpened. "When she gets back," he said slowly, "she'll learn exactly what it means to abandon her own child." And the way he said it? Cold, measured. Not with rage, but with certainty. That silence in the car held something big, heavy. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of the silence, because I knew someone was finally sitting in it with me, not waiting to yell or blame or punish, just there. If you've ever had that moment where someone finally sees you after years of being invisible, you'll understand. And if you haven't yet, tell me what you would have said to your mum if she'd done this to you, because I wish I had said more. I wish I had yelled. I wish I had asked her why wasn't I worth the plane ticket, but I didn't. I just stood there like a ghost and let her walk away, and that's what still gets me, not the leaving, but how easy it was for her. Back at the house, his house, I got out of the SUV like I was stepping onto a different planet. Stone, glass, city lights stretching into forever. Inside, someone handed me a robe. Another person offered me something hot to drink. A woman smiled at me, not with pity, but like she already knew my name. For a second, I forgot how to function. "Take a shower, sleep," my dad said gently. "You don't owe anyone a single word tonight." And I didn't. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to explain myself to survive. I just existed. And it was enough. The sheets were impossibly soft. That was my first thought when I woke up. Not fear, not hunger, just softness. I was wrapped in a cloud of blankets that smelled like something clean, something warm. For a second, I didn't even remember where I was. And then it all rushed back. The airport, the jet, my father. I sat up slowly, blinking against the early light pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows. Beyond the glass, the city stretched wide and endless, like someone had handed me a map to every version of the life I'd never been allowed to live. This house, no, this world, was the opposite of everything I'd grown up in. No yelling, no slammed doors. No walking on eggshells. The staff here didn't flinch when I passed them. They smiled. They said things like, "Good morning, Miss Chloe," like I mattered, like I wasn't a burden to be minimised. I didn't know how to be in a place like this. Later that morning, my dad found me sitting on the balcony, wrapped in a thick sweater someone had left folded on the chair. He handed me a cup of tea, strong, a little bitter, exactly how I liked it, even though I'd never told anyone that before. He sat beside me, silent for a long time. I think he knew I wasn't ready to talk. And somehow, that made me want to. "She made me believe you hated me," I said finally. My voice cracked, but I didn't try to fix it. "She said you abandoned us, that you didn't care, that you were gone because you wanted to be." He didn't look away, but I saw something shift in him, pain, regret, fire, all at once. "I never stopped wanting you," he said, his voice low but unshakable. "She kept you from me. She made sure I couldn't find you." My throat tightened. There it was again, the thing I'd been afraid to want, the idea that someone had actually fought for me even when I didn't know it. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He shook his head hard. "Don't you ever apologize for being taken from me." We sat like that for a while. The breeze pulled at my hair and I let it. Then he added, almost like a warning, "She won't get away with this, not again." I turned to him slowly. "What do you mean?" He took a breath, then smiled. But it wasn't a kind smile. It was quiet and sharp, and filled with something I hadn't seen before. Precision. "You said she used your college fund for this vacation?" I nodded. "She told me it was gone, that there was nothing left after my medical bills when I was 13, but then she and Mark, I couldn't bring myself to call him my stepfather, suddenly started taking trips, buying new watches, booking resorts." My dad's jaw tightened. "I hired a legal team the moment you called me. We've already started tracing the account. It's yours, Chloe, every dollar. And if they touched it, there will be consequences." I felt the air leave my chest. She hadn't just left me. She'd stolen from me. She'd lied to my face for years while siphoning away my future. And now she was sipping cocktails on a beach she funded with my stolen life. A silence settled between us again, but this one was different, charged, strategic, like something was about to shift. "When she gets back," he said, "she won't recognize the life she left behind, because it won't be hers anymore." It hit me then. He wasn't just saving me. He was dismantling her, not out of revenge, not to destroy, but to protect, to rebuild, to reclaim the time we lost. I stood and walked to the edge of the balcony. The city glittered below us like something alive. This was the view she said didn't exist, the life she told me he couldn't possibly have. She called him a failure. She said he was dangerous. But the only danger I saw now was the mirror she refused to look into. If she ever does, I hope she sees exactly what she gave up. "There's something I've been holding back," but maybe someone out there will understand. You ever realize the person who was supposed to love you resented you instead? And then you meet someone who should have been broken and bitter, but they just open their arms like they've been waiting for you the whole time. If you've ever felt that, like you were wanted without earning it, tell me. I want to hear about it, because I used to think I was hard to love. Turns out I was just surrounded by people who didn't know how. The first time I saw the ledger, I didn't know what I was looking at. It was spread across my father's desk. 3 stacks of paper, 2 folders, and a screen with colour-coded transactions that made no emotional sense until they did. Until I noticed my name printed at the top of the bank statements. My name? And next to it? A balance that started at $540,000. A balance that, over the span of 4 years, had been bled dry. Vacation resorts, private spa retreats, diamond tennis bracelets, Mark's business fund, first-class flights, restaurants where entrees cost more than my rent would have if I ever had my own place. And then came the moment that broke me. A $12,500 charge labelled Maldives Presidential Suite, Honeymoon. They used my money. Money that was never meant for them. Money I didn't even know I had. Money meant for my future, for college, for housing, for something, anything, better than being stranded in an airport with $47 and a dead phone. I didn't say anything, I just stared. Beside me, my father stood silently, watching me read, letting me feel it without interruption. "She forged access years ago," he said finally. "The trust was under your name, but there was a clause she exploited, something I never thought she'd touch." I clenched my fists. "She told me we were broke, that you abandoned us, that everything was my fault." His hand landed gently on my shoulder. "She built that lie to keep you small, because the second you knew the truth, she wouldn't own you anymore." And just like that, another crack. Another truth sliding into place. She didn't just want me obedient, she wanted me desperate. Because desperate people don't ask questions. Desperate girls don't run. But I had. And now, she was the one who had nowhere left to go. The next few days passed in pieces. Lawyers came and went, moving like clockwork. A private investigator brought video proof of the honeymoon, my mother laughing on a yacht with a glass of something sparkling, her hands all over Mark, like she didn't just throw away a child to get there. Security footage, transaction histories, legal paperwork she never thought anyone would bother to pull. My father handled it all calmly, surgically, almost. He moved money, he froze accounts, and he filed one final order, eviction. The house, the one she took in the divorce, had never fully transferred. It sat in legal limbo for years, protected by silence, until now. The moment she stepped off that flight, she'd come home to a locked door, a taped notice, and a bank account that wouldn't even buy her bus fare. And I didn't feel sorry. I wish I could say I did, but I didn't. Because I remembered being 10 years old, watching her pour wine at 10 a.m., telling me we couldn't afford new school shoes while Mark bragged about his golf club upgrades. I remembered every time she rolled her eyes when I asked for help with homework. Every birthday I spent watching her dote on my half-siblings while saying, "You're old enough to understand this isn't about you." And I remembered the airport, the way her heels clicked, the way she said, "You'll manage." I'd managed. Now it was her turn. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the floor of my room, flipping through old photos I'd saved from the family iCloud, ones I used to treasure. One caught me off guard. It was me at age 7, missing teeth, wearing a birthday crown, my mum behind me, fake smiling for the camera. But in the reflection of the mirror behind us, you could see her phone screen. She was texting someone. She wasn't even looking at me. I deleted the photo, then another and another, until the screen went dark. I wandered to my father's study sometime around 2 a.m. The lights were still on. He was at his desk, reviewing documents, coffee in hand, calm, focused. "Can I ask you something?" I said, voice small. He looked up immediately. "Anything." "What happens to her now?" He set his cup down and leaned back slowly. "Her accounts are frozen. The house is no longer hers. She can contest it, but she won't win. The legal team is airtight, and the trust fund, he paused. She can never touch it again, not a single cent. A strange relief washed over me, but tangled in that relief was something I didn't expect. Guilt. She's going to hate me, I said. He stood up, walked around the desk, and put both hands gently on my shoulders. She might, he said, but don't confuse consequences with cruelty. I swallowed hard. She was supposed to protect me. His voice broke slightly. She was supposed to be your mother, but she failed. That doesn't make you responsible. It makes her accountable. I nodded, tears pricking at the corner of my eyes. He didn't try to stop them, he just let me be. That was the thing about my father, he didn't fix feelings, he honoured them. If you've ever had to unlearn what love looked like, if someone taught you love meant shrinking yourself, earning approval, walking on glass just to be tolerated, I hope this part finds you, because I'm still learning what it means to be safe, to be wanted without performing. And if you've ever felt that tug, that whisper in your gut that says something's not right, you're not crazy, you're just waking up. It happened at 3:12 in the morning. The house was silent. Not the kind of silence that buzzes with tension like I grew up with. This one felt earned, safe. I was finally sleeping through the night again. No clenched fists under the pillow, no half-waking to phantom footsteps or slammed doors. And then my dad's phone lit up on the nightstand. He reached for it slowly. I was curled up on the oversized reading chair in his room. I'd fallen asleep there by accident with a book still open on my lap. He read the screen, his expression flat. Then he handed it to me, no words. Just a simple motion and a softness in his eyes that said, "You don't have to, but you can. It was her. Mum, all caps, still saved like that." I hadn't changed it. I stared at it for a second, heartbeat rising, breath going shallow. Then I answered, "Chloe?" Her voice cracked immediately, thin, trembling, like it had been dipped in panic. "I came home and everything's gone," she choked. "The locks, the car, the accounts. I can't access anything. What's going on?" I didn't answer right away. Her voice twisted tighter. "Where are you?" I swallowed. "I'm with Dad." A beat of silence, then a sharp inhale. "With him? After everything he did to us?" I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so deeply, pathetically familiar. The script, the deflection, the denial. "You mean after you abandoned me in a terminal with $47? I asked, my voice level. "That was a misunderstanding," she said quickly. "I didn't think you'd react like that. I thought you could manage. You've always been resilient." I stared at the floor. 15 years old, one duffel bag, no ride, no food, resilient. "I wasn't a stray dog," I said quietly. "I was your daughter." More silence. "I came back and everything was gone," she whispered. "My life, my security. Chloe, I don't understand." "You spent my future on spa weekends," I said. "You stole the money Dad set aside for me before I could even apply to a single school." Her voice cracked. "I didn't know." "Yes, you did." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I let the truth hang there sharp and clean. "You walked away from me," I said finally. "Now you're finding out what it feels like." The line was quiet. Then came the unravelling. "This is my house," she snapped suddenly, composure slipping. "You don't get to steal it. He doesn't get to take everything from me." "No," I interrupted. "It was never yours. It was his. You used it. You lied. You took. And now it's gone because it was never really yours to begin with." Her voice was shaking now. "Chloe, listen to me. You don't have to do this. You can come back. We'll figure it out. I didn't mean for this to happen. You're my daughter." I took a long breath, and for once, I wasn't scared of her. Not her voice, not her pain, not the weight she used to drop on me like an anchor. "I'm not coming back." The words landed like steel. She didn't respond. Not really. I heard her breath hitch. Then I ended the call. My father didn't say anything. He just reached for my hand and gave it a quiet squeeze. It said, "I saw that. I'm proud of you." And somehow, That meant more than anything, because I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I didn't let her rewrite the story one more time. I chose peace. For the first time in my life, I chose me. The days that followed felt like stepping into air I could finally breathe. We went back to court to finalise everything. Her name came up in legal filings and asset audits, but emotionally, she was already gone. I started school again, with a private tutor to help me catch up. They let me choose my subjects, my schedule. No one sighed when I made a mistake. No one rolled their eyes when I got something wrong. I picked my own clothes for the first time without a lecture about what's flattering or what the neighbours will think. I learned how to eat 3 meals a day without apologising for being hungry. I got quiet sometimes, especially when I walked past mirrors. Sometimes I'd see a flicker of the old version of me, the girl who said sorry before she said hello. But then I'd remember, that girl was left behind at the airport. I wasn't her anymore. One afternoon, I found Dad in his study again, papers everywhere, headphones half off. I asked him gently, "What happens if she keeps calling, keeps trying?" He looked up, calm. "She might try," he said, "but she can't touch you, not legally, not financially. She's out of moves." I nodded slowly. "But why won't she stop?" He didn't even hesitate. "Because she's losing power, and people like her don't know how to exist without it." And that, somehow, hurt more than all the yelling ever did. Because he was right. She never really loved me. She controlled me. And when that control disappeared, so did she. That night, I lay in bed with the window open. The breeze smelled like rain. Somewhere far off, a storm was building, but it didn't scare me. For once, the storm wasn't mine to survive. It was hers. I had already walked through mine. If you've ever been in that moment when someone calls you, not because they love you, but because they're losing control of you, I see you. And if you've ever had to say, "I'm not coming back," even when your voice was shaking, you're not cold, you're not heartless, you're finally free. The marble floors were cold, not in a threatening way, just real. I looked down at my shoes, my fingers tightening around the sleeves of my blazer. Across from me, my father sat calm, legs crossed, one hand lightly resting on the folder that held everything: bank records, forged signatures, travel expenses, trust withdrawals. Every lie. This was it. The final hearing. She was already in the building. I could feel it. Some part of me thought I'd crumble when I saw her again, but when the elevator doors opened and I looked across the lobby, I barely recognised her. She looked smaller than I remembered, not physically, just deflated. The expensive bag in her hand looked too heavy for her frame. Her heels clicked slower. Her makeup was carefully done, but it didn't hide the cracks. Not this time. She saw me. And for a second her eyes sparked with something, hope maybe. "Chloe," she said softly, "we can still fix this." I stepped back without thinking. "No," I said, "I'm done." The courtroom doors opened, and before she could say more, the bailiff called my name. I walked past her. I didn't look back. Inside, it moved fast. The judge reviewed the paperwork. My father's lawyers presented everything. She had no claim, no legal standing, no rights to my trust, no access to the house, no financial power, no basis to appeal. The court ruled in our favour. She sat in the back row, frozen. No outburst, no dramatic plea, just silence. And then it was over, just like that. Outside, I felt the wind pick up. I hadn't even realised how tightly I was holding myself until I exhaled, long, slow, steady. My father held the door open as we stepped into the car. "How do you feel?" he asked gently. I looked out the window for a while, then turned to him. "Clean." He smiled, pride warming every line in his face. "Then that's all that matters." The days that followed felt like a new language. Everything was unfamiliar. But not in a scary way, more like, oh, so this is what it's supposed to feel like. I started school full-time. My teachers actually knew my name. I had a counsellor who asked me how I was doing and meant it. I started therapy. At first I hated it. Then I got used to it. Now I look forward to it. I got a library card. I bought notebooks just because I liked the covers. I stopped holding my breath when people said my name. The house slowly became mine, not just somewhere I was staying. I rearranged my room. I chose my own sheets. I hung up art. I planted a tiny pot of herbs on the kitchen windowsill, just because I could. I learned what my laugh sounded like when it wasn't tight and filtered. I stopped flinching when someone raised their voice, even on TV. I even stopped bracing for her text. Because one day I realised it would never come. She wasn't reaching out to fix anything. She wasn't reaching out at all, and that somehow was the most peaceful part. One afternoon I walked past my father's office and heard him on the phone. "Yes," he said calmly. "She has no legal claim and she knows it. Let her scream." He met my eyes in the doorway and ended the call with a quiet click. "She's still trying?" I asked. He nodded. "Letters. Empty threats." I stepped in and sat across from him. "Why doesn't she just stop?" He leaned forward, elbows on his desk. "Because she's not used to silence. She's used to control. And now, she has neither." I nodded, the answer settling in my bones, and it didn't hurt this time. That night I stood on the balcony and watched the lights stretch far beyond the hills. The sky was soft, warm, the kind of dusk that makes you feel like you belong somewhere, like you're part of something, not chasing it. I thought about her, sitting alone somewhere, maybe still pretending she had control, maybe still rewriting the story to anyone who would listen. But it didn't matter anymore. Because I wasn't hers to narrate, not her tragedy, not her guilt, not her daughter. I was mine now. If you've ever had to walk away from someone who should have fought for you, I just want to say, I see you. And if this story sat heavy on your chest, if it reminded you of a version of yourself you've been trying to protect, say something. You don't have to explain it, just say, "I'm still here." Because sometimes the bravest thing we ever do is survive. And surviving, that's where our stories begin, not theirs, not anymore.